Hey there, name's Alex, and I'm no economist, but I'm also not a doomsday prepper. I probably wouldn't even last a week if the bombs fell, and I don't really envy the ones of you that do. And you're not really gonna want to survive and be alive much longer after the world ends. But you know who has gotten it into their heads, or who also shouldn't be pretending, should stop trying to pretend like they're a doomsday prepper? Billionaires. Because a lot of them have gotten it into their heads that the world is going to end soon at that, and that they need to be prepared for that. So they're buying land and remote islands, and they're building bunkers, and they're stocking up on things like food, water, guns, ammo, supplies, fuel, and other necessities. And they're also trying to recruit mercenaries for security, hoping that those people would stay loyal to them in the event of a future apocalypse or end of the world scenario. And even at some ultra wealthy conventions, they're discussing the topic of how to even keep people loyal once the bombs start falling or the meteor hits. And they're talking about things like shock collars or chip implanted kill switches or other such sci-fi mumbo jumbo. And when you think about it, consider this. Imagine that you're some big tough guy mercenary who knows how to shoot guns, and you'll be very willing to have a shock collar placed on you or have a kill switch chip implanted in you, right? Yeah, that's the first thing that comes to mind when you sell yourself as a gun for hire, right? Yeah. Anyway, I think that billionaires are among the people among us who have the least chance of surviving an end of the world scenario, be that nuclear war or meteor hitting or a new plague that wipes out half the population, or even an alien invasion or zombie apocalypse, whatever your scenario, pick your poison. I'm betting most on nuclear war, and my least likely scenarios are probably the zombie apocalypse followed by alien invasion. I'm expecting the aliens to come before zombie apocalypse hits us. Anyway, billionaires again are probably some of the people who are most dependent for their lifestyle on the stability and continuation of the current world order, and I don't think that they should be putting a lot of effort into trying to survive its collapse because they're really not gonna. Because I regret to inform you, but we humans are not immortal. And the human shape is rather fragile, vulnerable, and frail. And most importantly of all, maybe, to the lack of its basic necessities like food, water, warmth, etc. But the billionaires are still trying to play doomsday preppers, even though not only how I mentioned, a lot of people are mortal, and a lot of the billionaires are actually very old. And even the ones that aren't very old, the ones that are younger than 50, most of them aren't in peak physical condition either. Not that I am any example of peak athleticism, but anyway, and that's something that's going to be very important in a post-apocalyptic scenario. How fit you are, because you may need to do all sorts of physical things in order to survive post-collapse. But let's look at how billionaires are actually rich right now. Most of them, someone like, for example, Warren Buffett, even though this is not to bash personally at Warren Buffett, nothing personally against him. I could have gone with anyone like Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, or even a popular cult favorite vampire like George Soros, or any of the Rockefellers or Rothschilds, anyone. A lot of those people not only are very old, but the way they're rich is mostly through their investments. They're rich because they started companies and businesses that sell and that produce and sell stuff, products and services to people who want them and are willing to pay for them. For example, someone like Warren Buffett, He's an investor. He's a hedge fund manager. And one of his funds, I think it was Berkshire Hathaway, is, for example, overly exposed on something like Apple stock. And now imagine the moment the bombs start falling, Apple stock is instantly going to have zero value because the moment the bombs hit or the meteor hits, no one is going to want any more iPhones. And even if the factories in China that build the iPhones are probably not going to stay open, no one's going to work in them and produce the iPhones that no one is going to want to buy. And in that way, all of the billions that someone like Warren Buffett has tied up in Apple stock are suddenly going to have zero value. And that also goes for things like cash, physical paper cash, or money in your bank accounts. That's also going to instantly become to have zero value. That also goes for precious metals like gold and silver. And I would even say crypto, because in an environment without an internet connection and electricity, crypto is going to be worthless and you're not going to be able to sell it. What's going to have value after the collapse is going to be things like common, everyday, mundane items that you even take for granted right now. Like, for example, even food, water, maybe even shelter, fuel, guns, ammunition, what else? Batteries, any sort of fuel or energy if you want to use vehicles to get around or run any sort of heavy machinery to maintain or produce stuff. Things like lighter, not just lighters, but also the fuel for them. I hate this virtual green screen. Yeah, this even works. Okay. So that's going to be very valuable. Also, the liquid for filling lighters, batteries, flashlights. Essentially, we have plenty of recent history war zone examples. What becomes valuable in those sort of environments, including things like razor blades and also, very important, alcohol, because no one's going to want to stay sober without booze in a post-apocalyptic environment. And maybe one other thing, medical supplies, because it's really going to be a shame if you survive the first weeks and months after the bombs hit, only to later, 3 years later down the line maybe, drink some bad water and die in a pool of your own piss, shit, and vomit because you couldn't get any medication. And that's really not a good way to go. And I really imagine that if the bombs started hitting, a lot of the people that managed to survive the initial blasts, they're probably going to look for the easiest and least painful way out, and no one's going to be left. So there isn't going to be any rebuilding of civilization and repopulating of the earth. And the billionaires are suddenly going to find themselves very vulnerable, very frail, most of them very old, not rich. They're suddenly going to stop being rich because no one's going to be rich in that environment, except if you've managed to stock up on those basic necessities. But what are you going to use them and trade them for besides use them for yourself and maybe curry favor with other people? Because there is also strength in numbers, but also every person has their wants, desires, positives, negatives, etc., that you're going to have to deal with. One of your biggest threats in a post-apocalyptic environment is going to be other people. And how are you, as a formerly rich billionaire, going to deal with a lot of people who probably don't like you very much, even if you've managed to install shock collars on them or implant them with something like kill switch loyalty chips? They're going to stab you in the back the moment they get the chance. So maybe that's why the billionaires are investing currently in such things like bunkers and shelters and supplies for them, because maybe they're hedging against a potentially world-ending scenario. But imagine you have to get there. You have to have foreknowledge of when the bombs are going to drop and be there in preparation. or you're going to have to make the journey, because billionaires usually inhabit densely populated urban areas that are also gonna be probably prime targets for nuclear bombs. And even if a meteor hits, a lot of the major urban centers are on ocean shores, and they're going to be hit by things like tsunamis. So imagine you're Warren Buffett, and you need to get your remote shelter out in some forest in some flyover country like Nebraska or Minnesota or wherever you've built your shelter, and you're traveling with a group, some of which are your hired mercenaries that you paid for, some of which are maybe close friends, relatives, associates, etc. And at what point those people are going to think, hey, Mr. Buffett there, old guy Buffett, yeah, I know he organized all of this, but why are we dragging him along? He's old. He's probably going to die next year, or he's probably going to die the first time he gets a cough in this environment. He's just dead weight. Why are we dragging him along with us? Why not get rid of him? Why not get rid of him? Yeah, maybe he has the key or the access code to the vault, and only he knows the location of the vault. But yeah, maybe the things that are in that vault, maybe they're readily available somewhere also outside of that vault, and there's not much special in that vault for us to make the journey and keep old man Buffett alive long enough for us to get there. So I'm sorry, Mr. Buffett, you're really not going to last the end of the world. And when I when I profess my belief in a future stateless society, that I believe we should dismantle the state before it collapses on its own, because that's the worst scenario. When the state collapses on its own, people are going to cry for it to come back. But if we incrementally dismantle the state, I believe that we can live every day with 1% less state until we figure out we're living doing just fine without the state. But a sudden collapse of the state is, I think, something that would be in the best interest of statists. I think there's this where was it? Somewhere in ancient Babylon, I think there was this king who decided he's going to retire just so his subjects and his close associates, his lords and vassals, would later come begging for him to come back to the throne and rule. But he laid conditions. He said, I'm going to rule for the rest of my life, and you're going to do everything my way. And that's the entire reason he went and retired in the first place. And I think a scenario where the state suddenly collapses is going to play like that. And billionaires, the ultra wealthy, are currently super dependent on the state for their continued lifestyle and protection from people like you, from your anger, because the billionaires, the ultra wealthy, use the state as both a willing umbrella and club. Umbrella to protect themselves from you, and club to beat you over with, and also their competition, because I've noticed that none of the major businesses want their new competition to arise, to start from the zero, from scratch, from someone's garage. No Microsoft or Apple or Amazon wants their competitor that's going to drive them out of business to start up in some guy's garage right now. So big business, big corporations are going to be in bed with the state. And barring the state, without the protection of the state, the one thing that would keep billionaires, the ultra wealthy, the one thing that would be the fine line between them being continuing to be ultra wealthy and successful and being broke and unheard of, is them providing good products and good services at a fair price. And that's something that another YouTube channel that I follow, Aaron Clary, talks a lot about. Good product or service at a fair price. That's all we want, all we people want from big business. Because the moment you start cheating people, lying to people, defrauding people, they're going to want to take you out. Even in a stateless environment, I would say that 80 to 90% of people just want to be left alone, and would likely leave you alone if you leave them alone. It's probably something like 10 to 20% troublemakers. But if you start to steal from people and you try to hurt them, they're going to get angry real quick. And look at what happened recently with the United Healthcare CEO. Now, all that insurance companies need to do is take people's money in the event that something happens as an insurance. That's the whole idea of insurance. And when something happens to people, pay them back the agreed upon sum. But since they've instituted an AI claim rejection system, someone got really mad and decided to shoot the CEO of United Health Company. And that guy was a billionaire. And all the money in the world and all the state apparatus, the state protection, and all the supposedly private security couldn't save him from one angry guy with a gun. So that's how vulnerable billionaires are. And when someone tells me that when the state collapses, the rich are just going to hire mercenaries and run everything, no, that's not really what's going to happen. They're going to have to keep their eyes open constantly, because it's probably the armed security that will have the best opportunity and will be the most likely to get rid of them. And the best protection from something like that is to not get on people's nerves. It's better to be liked than hated and feared. Being liked by people is a better form of protection and armor in general. Just even if the world doesn't collapse, even if the world stays stable and we all enjoy safety and prosperity, it's still better to not fool people, to not cheat people, not steal from them, and keep your word. Basically, even without a state, you need two rules. Don't transgress against others. That is, don't hurt, steal, cheat from them. And keep your word. That's all the rules you need. And if we were to stack the legislation of any country in the world, so let's take any European country, for example, Netherlands or Belgium, if you were to write out all of their legislation on A4 sheets of paper. I don't know. Yeah, hate the virtual background. I'm gonna need to switch to my old setup. If you were to write all of the legislation of a country like Belgium or Netherlands on an A4 piece of paper, double-sided, 12 points font, double spaced, it will probably stack up higher than any skyscraper that we've ever built. And I don't think we need that many laws. But anyway. So the best form of protection for billionaires and what's going to keep them rich and successful and liked by all is if they just continue to provide good products and good services at a fair price. And that's all we want from the rich, all we want from the businesses. Nothing more, nothing less. Just that. And maybe shut up about politics. And maybe stop trying to influence politics and maybe stop trying to pretend like you're gonna survive, like you're less mortal than us and like your shit smells less. And maybe one other piece of advice for the ultra wealthy. Maybe instead of investing in bunkers, guns, hired mercenaries, etc., why not invest in things that will preserve the state of the world or maybe even improve it. So things like social stability, social cohesion, social trust, things that will improve prosperity, or maybe even, brilliant idea, even better products and services at an even lower price. Why not do that? Anyway, that's all I had for this video. I've not been a doomsday prepper. This is actually not my doomsday prepper hat. This is my still in good Christmas cheer hat. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, comment below how you think that the billionaires are actually going to survive the world and they're going to come out on top and rule us in the end, and how they're going to repopulate the Earth and reach Mars, even if a lot of them are probably past 80, whatever, up to you. Subscribe to the channel, there will be future videos, and maybe even if you want to support this channel, there are links below, and that's it. Till next time.